Good Friday evening to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Welcome to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon, getting set to talk plenty of Cleveland Browns football. Mini camps not likely to happen, but the Browns trying to get things lined up for when they can come together in training camp. The other thing that has happened, we've heard from Bill Callahan, the Browns offensive line coach, a guy who has NFL head coaching experience and is and has been regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL for quite a few seasons now. Callahan excited about what he sees with the Browns' number one pick in the draft, the 10th pick overall, Jedrick Wills. He feels they'll have no trouble making the move from right tackle to left tackle, protecting Baker Mayfield's blind side.
When you watch a player on film, I think you come away, your takeaways are, well, this guy's a good player, he's solid, he has athletic ability. But with Jedrick, it was a little bit different in that you could feel him on film. He came alive on tape, and you got excited about what he was doing throughout the course of the game. And then, a lot of times people talk about makeup and they talk about character and all these other things, which are great, in which he does have. But he's got these intangibles that show up in tangible ways on film where, you watch him finish, you watch him detail a technique, you watch his consistent effort and his stamina throughout the course of the game from start to finish. And I think that's what was, the appeal for me. And I think our scouts did a great job. And organizationally, I think everybody contributed to his selection and really spoke highly of him, and all the background work that our scouts did prior to the draft and also at the combine just spoke volumes for the player. So when you put all those pieces together, it's not a hard decision to make. I remember, let's say we had Zach Martin, who we moved from a college left tackle to right guard. We did the same thing in Washington with Sheriff. He was a left tackle at Iowa, and he came over and played right guard for us when he was drafted. So, throughout my career, I've had a lot of guys that I've mixed and matched and moved around. And one of the other guys that comes to mind is Damian Woody, who was a center for New England and was drafted in the first round. And when he hit free agency, he ended up in Detroit and got hurt and was looking for another position to play. And when I was at the Jets, Mike Tannenbaum did a great job in signing him, and we made a right tackle out of him for years, and he did a great job there as well. So it's interesting, some guys can make the switches, some guys can't, but it's always fun. If they want to do it, they'll make the switch.
With Jedrick Wills, is it sort of assumed at this point that you guys want him to be your week one starter at left tackle, or is it too early to say that?
No, I don't think so. I think whenever you draft a player as high as we've drafted Jedrick, I've always felt that you've got to plug him in and play him immediately. That's why you draft him. So no, that doesn't concern me, scare me, bother me in any respect. So I'm quite confident that he's capable of being our left tackle.
That is the Browns offensive line coach, Bill Callahan. Now let's welcome in cleveland.com and Plain Dealer beat reporter for the Browns, one of them, Ellis Williams. Ellis, you heard Bill Callahan speak about Jedrick Wills, felt really good about the draft. After hearing a guy that's as well respected of an offensive line coach as Callahan, I feel even better. What about you? What did you think about what he had to say about Wills?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In Bill Callahan, Browns fans should trust. This is going to be one of the sneaky, better hires of the offseason. Offensive line play is tricky at any level. At the NFL, it's, of course, the most tedious, depending on your scheme. And that's why it's exciting that the Browns landed one of the most respected and, quite frankly, probably one of the 4 or 5 guys in the league who truly know what they're doing at this position. He just spoke of pure wisdom, and you could tell throughout his experience that he's as comfortable as could be coming to Cleveland and inheriting a player like Jedrick Wills. It doesn't sound like he's that worried about a transition that we've all been talking about, and you heard it in that clip there. He's got a lot of experience in players changing all over the offensive line and succeeding, whether it was Zach Martin and Damian Woody, like you heard in the clip. He talked about Tyron Smith, and what I like about all his examples is they run the gamut or the spectrum of athleticism. You know, Zach Martin and Tyron Smith are two guys that really stand out for different reasons. Damian Woody's a guy who sort of reinvented himself late and made it happen. What they all have in common, and one thing that I think is important to focus on, is just the willingness to switch. And Jedrick seems to check out in every asset you could imagine when it comes to his willingness to be great at this position. Now he's young. He obviously hasn't played an NFL snap yet, but when you have a coach as experienced as Bill Callahan raving about this young man's willingness and want to learn, I think he had a quote something about how he absorbs information and wants more. He's hungry for this offensive line knowledge. He's willing to embrace all these different techniques, said a lot of the same stuff about Jack Conklin. There's just a lot to be excited about along that Browns offensive line. And considering what fans saw last year, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it feels like it's going to be night and day now with the additions they've made and now the person overseeing the entire unit as well.
The other thing that strikes me is we've talked a lot about alignment, in part because the Browns, made a big deal about front office, head coach in alignment. Seems like the position coach had some input because it looks like he had a pretty good handle on what he was seeing on tape, and I don't know that has been the case before this year.
Yeah, it feels like they are a collective unit in this and making the decisions and letting the position of merit dictate who gets influence on that pick, and whether it's the number 10 pick or the pick all the way down to Donovan Peoples-Jones. I know the special teams coordinator had some say in Peoples-Jones because he'll be returning the football. So whether it's on special teams or all the way at pick 10 across your offensive line, this is a collective think tank, and it seems like everyone's getting their say in. And on top of that, Bill Callahan mentioned multiple times and praised the Browns scouting department on what they found on Jedrick, how he checks out as a quality guy from high school on, and then of course watching the tape, the things they like. And again, I need to go back to that quote where he said Jedrick just comes alive on tape. I couldn't agree more with that, and that's why this whole organization seems so excited about Jedrick, and why the feeling in this front office just feels different than years prior.
And there's still, there's still some holes on that offensive line. If you look at the depth chart, right guard is still a concern, but instead of, now you're not as concerned about right tackle, now you're not as concerned about left tackle in addition to right guard. Now right guard is really the only question. Is it going to be Wyatt Teller? Is it going to be Chris Hubbard? Does one of the younger guys step up? So those are things. If it's one guy of the five, you can usually scheme around it. Three makes it a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The Browns aren't going to have to worry about, like you said, having 3 of the 5 holes. They've now only got 1, and I think this is really important to keep in mind. When you have a coach like Bill Callahan, not only is a coach of his merit going to think they can get a C player to play a maybe C plus, B minus. That's usually how it works. The offensive line is a unit, and especially in the zone blocking scheme, they need to move in unison. They need to move as one. So if your left guard and your center are playing capable in how they have been playing in years past, well, a guy like Bill Callahan is going to raise the level of play of that right guard, even though in their past or just their athletic attributes, they might not be on par with the rest of the line. He's going to get them playing better. It's just the way the position works. And when you have 4 of the 5 already ready to go, I'm starting to be a lot more confident in that right guard spot, that the Browns don't need to bring anyone else in. They're confident with who they have because they have one of the best offensive line coaches in football ready to move that C talent up to C plus or B minus caliber. And then you're looking at a pretty good offensive line unit in Cleveland.
And, if you look at that depth chart of the offensive line, the guys that have to be the most excited about it, you got Conklin and Wills, the tackles, Teller and Bitonio. Bitonio, really good left guard, and Treader, the center. That's J.C. Treader, again, a really good center. When you look at the guys that have to be the most excited, I'm going to guess it's going to be not only Baker Mayfield, but Nick Chubb, and also Kareem Hunt. Don't forget, Kareem Hunt only played 8 games, and that line with the scheme that they want to run, the zone blocking and the wide zone scheme, it has the potential to be a really, really devastating run game.
Yeah, there's a bunch of truth there, and the Kareem Hunt's the one player I can't figure out how his 2020 is going to go, and that's not in a negative way. There's just so much opportunity for him. You can go back and look at the Vikings and cut the tape however you want to. You see Dalvin Cook all over the field. You see the 2-3 tight end sets. You see the play action. You see the deep throws to Stephon Diggs. You can imagine all those pieces moving to Cleveland pretty seamlessly. The one player Kevin Stefanski didn't have in Minnesota was a player like Kareem Hunt. Quite frankly, no one in the league has him. He can run routes as a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, and this guy has won a rushing title. So this is probably more of a fantasy football problem than it is an actual football problem. But figuring out what Nick Chubb's carries per game are going to look like compared to Kareem Hunt's is something that we're going to probably just have to wait and see, because do these guys split carries? Is Kareem Hunt more of a change of pace? And as my colleague Dan Lobby puts it, an overqualified Duke Johnson. I don't think they're going to waste him like that, but it's a puzzle they're going to have to solve and put together. And once they do, it's going to be really interesting to see. I would see it more as a more of an even split between Chubb and Hunt. And Browns fans may not like that. And Chubb's going to be great in this wide zone scheme too. But Kareem Hunt's just a guy you can't leave off the football field. And then when he is on the field, he deserves the ball in his hand also.
Well, the other thing is you don't want a running back, beat up when you get to the middle of the year. And there's no reason for the Browns to overuse either one of those backs. The one thing that, and again, you watch a lot of tape and break it down, there's the ability for the Browns to create matchup problems for a defense all over the place. And that's something they never took advantage of last year. I think this offensive system will be working and doing that significantly.
Yeah, and another thing with last year, not only were they not taking advantage of mismatches, they weren't setting anything up. They weren't complementing the run with the pass or the pass with the run. And that goes back to what Kevin Stefanski said the day of his presser. And much like the draft, when we evaluate it, what we see early tends to be who you are later, and we just overanalyze all this in between. Kevin Stefanski showed his hand right when he walked into Cleveland. I'm going to marry the run to the pass, and they're going to look identical. And Bill Callahan talked about that in the presser yesterday, that's been the goal of the wide zone scheme since day one. He referred to it back, in Washington, with the Wisconsin Badgers even. And then he made a really important point that, if you've been watching the film, you can see it. The playoffs teams, the Tennessees, the Minnesota Vikings, the Niners, and even said the Saints a little bit. I haven't seen it as much, but I'm going to trust a guy like Bill Callahan, of course, who studies this stuff every day. They're all running a sort of wide zone, and that it says a lot about what they're trying to do on offense. And most importantly, they're trying to simplify the reads for Baker Mayfield, because at the end of the day, that's the most important part of this offense, the quarterback, and figuring out what you have in Baker Mayfield. And why not make it easier on the guy? And that's what I think is going to happen in Cleveland starting week 1 in Baltimore.
Last thing, we'll wrap up the Bill Callahan part of this talk about the Browns. The other thing that impressed me is they asked him about not being Bill Callahan. The question was placed to him about not being able, to get his hands on guys and work out, and how big of a challenge it is for the coaching staff. Keep in mind, this is a guy that has been an NFL head coach, and he said he's just been impressed with Kevin Stefanski. And again, I think that speaks volumes of the way the Browns have put this together.
Yeah, this goes back to the rise of Kevin Stefanski, starting in Minnesota as he's been described to me from some of my media connections here in the Twin Cities, a coffee runner. He went and got Brad Childress's coffee just to get his foot in the door as a young 20-something football coach, just trying to make a name for himself, all the way up to quarterback coaching. And I think it was two or three different times Mike Zimmer blocked Kevin Stefanski from interviewing for other coordinator jobs around the league. When your own coaching staff wants to retain you that much that they don't even let you interview, that says really what we need to know about Stefanski. He's been a hidden gem in the league probably for a while now, and it says a lot how he's paid his dues, and now he has this opportunity. And then you go from a guy like Mike Zimmer, who's seen it all, to Bill Callahan, both raving about the type of person and eventual head coach Stefanski's going to be. It makes a lot of sense why Paul DePodesta wanted him a year prior and now finally got his guy in Cleveland this year.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we're going to flip sides of the ball. We'll talk some linebackers. That's an area the Browns really need to address. Ellis and I will talk about it. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We talked a little bit about the offensive side of the ball, and Andrew Berry in the Browns front office plugged holes at left tackle and right tackle, addressed tight end. An area of concern has to be the linebacking core. And when we look at that linebacking core, you look at the depth chart, there's a lot of questions. I mean, Mack Wilson showed some flashes last year and showed some areas where he was a rookie. Sione Takitaki didn't really find the field, was mostly a special teams guy, but again, a second-year guy. They did go out and sign B.J. Goodson, a guy who, by all indications, will make tackles. They did draft one in Jacob Phillips, who led LSU in tackles, but wasn't really the big-name linebacker. You look at this depth chart, and linebacker is a question, without question. Let's welcome back in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com. And Ellis, when you look at that, you know, what jumps out at, you know, just your thoughts. When you look at the lack of experience, what do you see with the Browns linebacking core?
Yeah, we shouldn't be that surprised that the room looks young and inexperienced. The Browns said what they were going to do at linebacker the moment they didn't extend Christian Kirksey or Joe Schobert. I went and looked at the top, 10, 12 linebackers coming into this free agent class, and regardless, depending on where you look, Schobert and Kirksey are both inside the top 5 or 6, and Schobert's as high as 2 or 3 in a lot of those lists. So when you go down, then you look at a guy like Blake Martinez, who ended up getting a 3-year, $30 million deal. the Browns weren't willing to pay a linebacker $10 million a year, and then Kirksey gets 2 for $16. They weren't willing to pay a linebacker $8 million a year. So you really are just pricing yourself out of the linebacker market as soon as you don't want to pay that money. And then you're going to end up with what I just said, the inexperienced young group. And the Browns are clearly okay with that. Mack Wilson showed some signs last year. He was great in coverage, in zone coverage specifically, at Alabama. And then last year, his memorable play is that pick he had late in the year, covering the wide side of the field, playing strong side linebacker there to the field. And he made a great play, and that's what the Browns are hoping he can build on. He's also a talented blitzer. He wasn't asked to do that a whole lot last year until the D-line was a bit softer. And then they're going to have a guy like B.J. Goodson come in and be the leader of this group just by age. I think he's only 26, 27 years old, but he is going to be the veteran in that room. And then there's a lot to like about Phillips. He's a project, sure, but talking with a columnist at the Advocate yesterday about both those LSU draft picks, he was quick to mention that Patrick Queen shot up draft boards because of the way he played in the college football playoffs. Not saying that Patrick wasn't deserving of his first-round draft grade, but those 2 games and then him being defensive MVP in the championship propelled him up draft boards, where Phillips just kind of, stayed where people thought he was going to be, 3rd or 4th round pick. When you lead a team like the LSU Tigers in tackles, that's enough for people to look more like, okay, this guy's going to be a little more than special teams. You can see why Joe Woods wanted to acquire a talent like that. So though they're young, they're unproven, there's a lot in that room that can grow. And at the end of the day, if the Browns aren't happy with the linebacking unit they have, they can shake things up next year. These are a lot of one-year deals. They're young or on rookie contracts. They could prioritize that position next year in the draft or free agency. But right now, they're going to roll with what they got because they priced themselves out of the market when this all started anyway.
The other thing that comes to mind as I was looking at this, I went back and read some articles about the 49ers. The 49ers, before they were in the Super Bowl, were a 4-win team. And there was an article I read where John Lynch, their GM, basically wrote on a piece of paper, you can't fix everything this offseason. And he said anytime, he got concerned about something, he kind of looked back at that. Is that kind of the same thing with Andrew Berry? You address the offensive line, you address tight end, you kind of, and from looking at it, they have young guys that they could potentially develop. Is that kind of where they got to this point at linebacker because you couldn't fix everything you needed to in one off season?
Yeah, it seems like a really patient approach. I mean, of course, the wide receiver group in Cleveland isn't broken or limited like the linebacker group, but I can compare them because, quite frankly, they didn't really address much. You add a young guy like Jacob Phillips, and then you add a young guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones. They are going to take a long-term approach and a long-term look at this, which makes you think that the era of, look, I don't need to tell Browns fans this, but the head coach and the GM last about 1.5 years on average in Cleveland. Everyone's aware of this, but it seems that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, Paul DePodesta are taking the long run on this. And that's how championship teams are born. You just referred to the San Francisco 49ers, and like the Colts, those are the models now, or the Eagles. And Andrew Berry spent a year there, So that's how they're looking at this. And rather than getting money tied up at a position with guys you don't completely love, I mean, Blake Martinez at 3 years, $30 million. They just didn't want to pay that type of money, and they'll look at this next year. And if Mack Wilson, an Alabama product, and Jacob Phillips, an LSU product, can develop into 8-year pros, the SEC and those two alma maters say a lot about where this league's going. The SEC just set a record for players drafted in the first round. If those are your two guys at linebacker, that's not a bad tradition to have and a good pedigree to come from. So they're cool with it, and we're going to find out a lot early on, and they're going to keep getting tested and expect some bumps and bruises. That's why they have Myles Garrett. That's why they have Denzel Ward. They've got some bigger names on defense to cover up for their inefficiency at linebacker while these young men grow.
The other thing, Jadeveon Clowney still out there in free agency. There was some news that the Titans, one of the teams that were lumped in with the Browns as somebody that might be interested where Clowney might land. Well, Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Titans, has not talked to Clowney. That came out. Do you still think there's a chance that Clowney ends up with the Browns, and do you think it's a decent chance? Because it seems like the Seahawks are likely moving on as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a decent chance. You can never rule anything out in this league. I mean, if Davion drops his number from, the rumored 17, 16 he's looking for down to a 14 or a 13, then I think the Browns are going to be all in those conversations. But where he's at, and given how they're limiting their defensive spending anyway, because, they've got big extensions coming up, and there's a lot financially to figure out in not just the NFL, of course, but across all major sports. So now's not the time to get aggressive with money. And, though they signed smart deals in Hooper and Conklin, those are safer than going to get a guy like Clowney, who, you can't, is he a sack maker? Is he a run destroyer? Is he just a good athlete on the field? Why tie money up with him when you got to bring Myles Garrett back? You're hoping to work out an extension with Denzel Ward, and you don't know what the cap is going to look like and where the revenue is going to come from in the league. So this is deeper than just how these guys look on the field and what the rooms look like in these Zoom meetings. They've got to think about the cap going forward and their extensions, and a guy like Jadeveon Clowney probably just clouds all that up too much for them to be interested at the number.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com and with the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of break, switch gears a little bit. Pro Football Focus has done 10,000 simulations of the 2020 NFL season. We'll have some results of what they have in regards to the Browns and the rest of the AFC coming up next on More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Celebrate NatureStone's 30-year anniversary with a free NatureStone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making NatureStone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's NatureStone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less. Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to shift gears a little bit more, still Browns related. We're going to talk about simulations of the 2020 season. Pro Football Focus has taken what they believe is the strengths and weaknesses of each player for each team and done 10,000 simulations of the entire 2020 season. Let's take a look at how they view the AFC North finishing up. The number you see is the projected average number of wins for the 10,000 simulations Pro Football Focus did for the 2020 season. Ravens winning the AFC North, an average of 10.5 wins in the season. The Browns, 8.0 wins, just ahead of the Steelers and the Bengals. A significant increase at almost 7 wins per season. Now let's take it in depth a little bit further. The division winners during these simulations. The Chiefs with 11.5 wins per average on the season, the top in the AFC. The Ravens finished second, the Titans finished third, and then the Bills edge out the Patriots to win the AFC East. The wild cards, let's take a look. They have the Colts as the top wild card and the Browns sneaking in as a wild card just ahead of the Texans. Remember, there are 3 wild cards in the 2020 season as they expand the playoffs. Let's welcome back in Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter. Ellis, Pro Football Focus likes the Browns, so that's not a huge surprise. But Browns fans should be pretty excited. You do 10,000 simulations. They figure it out based on player strengths, and the Browns are right in the mix for that wild card as well.
Yeah, and the Browns could be one of the teams this year that really benefit from that extra playoff spot. It seems like now the number to get in is going to be about 8 or 9, where that was kept you really on the bubble, and 10 was really the number you needed to almost guarantee yourself in, outside of a few of those more contested AFC years and maybe an NFC one a couple years ago. But that number feels about right. What I find interesting about the 10,000 simulations is, are they accounting for fans in the stadiums, fans out of the stadiums, crowd noise, injuries, momentum? Momentum is a real thing in this league, maybe more than any league professionally. In the NBA, you can blame a back-to-back or playing, 3 games in 5 nights, things like that. In the NFL, your schedule is laid out, and you're really a victim to where you're going. And quite frankly, what about these travel games? There's 2 games in New York right now. Are the Browns going to be spending Christmas in New York or whatnot? And when does the season even start? So I understand the simulation, and I really respect everything PFF does. There's just a lot of unknown going into the season to land at where the Browns are going to be. I like to go down the schedule and group it into quarters. And one thing the Browns really have going for them is where their bye week lands, right there in week 9, I believe. You can cut the season right in half, and then you have organically, 4 games: Ravens, Bengals, Cowboys, and Washington, I believe, are in there. I might have flipped the Washington and Cowboy game. They can start 2-2 in that stretch. They've got a really good opportunity to get to that bye week and then hit that second half of the schedule with a game like the Ravens-Browns game on Monday night. If the Browns are flirting with 6, 7, 8 wins by then, and then can make a statement win on Monday night, that's the type of momentum I'm talking about that I don't think 10,000 simulations can account for.
How big of an advantage is it that the Ravens are going to get the Browns, a brand new offense, brand new defense in week 1? You're not going to be able to see exactly what this looks like. That's got to be a little bit of an advantage, Browns.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth on this one. When you look at it, just when the schedule came out, I said, wow, that couldn't have been a worse draw for the Browns, mostly because of the unknown offseason. I've been pounding the table on this. Teams with continuity are going to have a big advantage in 2020 compared to teams with a new coach, and the Browns are the only AFC team with a new coach and a completely new regime, quite frankly. But then you think of games like, even when the Browns tied the Saints in week 1 there a couple of years ago with Hugh Jackson, that was a surprise. I don't know why the Saints are still in my mind, but that RG3 game, probably in 2012 or 2013, where week 1 you're just, wow, how did this happen? I think Tampa surprised a team maybe in week 1. There's some Fitz magic somewhere in there, whether he was a Dolphin or the Bucs. Point is, there's always 1 or 2 week 1 upsets that everyone's shocked by, but then you realize, okay, this is pretty status quo in the NFL. And I think that line is somewhere around 10 and a half right now. So that's a pretty steep line for, again, not knowing if there will be a home field advantage, not knowing where the game will even get played, and the Browns possibly having a surprise opportunity, like you said, not seeing what the offense is going to look like. And if Baltimore keeps running what they've been running and aren't able to really change much up, there's a ton of tape on them now, which I think we're going to get into later anyway. So you could see a sneaky opportunity there for the Browns to make a big statement in week 1 in Baltimore, because they won there last year also. I know no one's forgot about that just yet.
What about, what do you see win total for them as you look at the Browns? And I know it's early to do that, but, my guess is 8-8, 9-7. If everything falls their way, maybe 10-6, maybe. And flip side, if it, the key injury on the offensive line or somebody gets banged up, they could end up 7-9 or 6-10 again.
Yeah, and I'll say this: the Browns were really fortunate on offense last year, injury-wise. Odell battled the things he did, but Baker Mayfield playing through a couple bruises here and there, but that's football for you. The Browns are ready for an injury at really every position outside of maybe on the offensive line, but even then, Bill Callahan raved about Chris Hubbard's swing tackle ability and just how much of an asset he'll be. So the Browns are they're one of the deeper teams at the important positions, I would say. The secret to the schedule right now is what NFC East is the NFL going to get this year? If it's the NFC East of the past few years when no one wants to win the dang division and 8-8 or 9-7's taking it, and then you got a bottom feeder like Washington, then the Browns' schedule looks a lot easier. You could see a road to maybe double-digit wins, and I don't want to go too high there. When I say double-digit, 10 is the ceiling. I want to be clear on that. But if the NFC East, all of a sudden you get a juggernaut Cowboy offense that gets unlocked by Mike McCarthy, is CeeDee Lamb, you get the Eagles playing like they did when Carson Wentz and then eventual Nick Foles Super Bowl. If that NFC East becomes a top-tier division rather than the bottom feeder and quite frankly, laughingstock that it's been, then the Browns are in for a tougher road. But what I do like are those two New York games. I'm not too worried about the Giants, and the Jets have a lot of issues also. So, and one more thing, the Browns' final, I believe, 5 games, the last 9 games, 5 of them are at home. You're really happy to finish the season like that. And then you get Pittsburgh in Week 17, and that's always a fun one. If Big Ben is on the other side of his career, that might be an easier game than people are recognizing right now.
The other thing is there aren't other than, Ben Roethlisberger has been a pain in the Browns side, and you do have Joe Burrow, but they have Burrow, both games before the 8th game of the season. So you get a rookie quarterback before he's really gotten acclimated to the speed and what the game is about. You've got a lot of quarterbacks that are not elite. Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones in the NFC East that you mentioned. You got a young Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold. There isn't, I know you got Prescott, and I know you got Wentz, but there isn't the, oh man, you got to face Drew Brees, or oh man, you got to face Tom Brady. There's no Brees or Brady on this schedule.
Yeah, and no Pat Mahomes, so you got to be pretty excited about those avoiding the big names. Maybe that had more to do with why the Browns aren't in prime time compared to just being a Browns problem. They just didn't have the quarterback matchup necessarily. Of course, that Ravens game is there for that reason. And you're really onto something with the quarterbacks. And not only that, but you get Joe Burrow at a great time, Week 2, a primetime game in Cleveland. He's a rookie learning a new offense in a virtual offseason. And then, again, you get Dwayne Haskins after that. That Cowboy game is scary going to, teams tend to play better in Jerry World, but again, you're on the road. And then right after that, you get the Colts. And the Colts could be a darling in the AFC this year, but that is only going to be Week 5 for a new offense in Phillip Rivers. And though there's some familiarity between Rivers and his offensive coordinator there, that's still a new quarterback. So even though it's the name Phillip Rivers, it's a new unit for him. So I think that first 4 or 5 games lands pretty nice for the Browns. You could be looking at, 3-2, something like that. And if you can get out of there with above 500 record, and that bye week's coming up, I think this lands pretty well for the Browns to flirt with 9 to 10 wins.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit about the team that is projected to win the AFC North, the Ravens. And we'll also talk, it might be a little step back in Baltimore. More sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Your home is your most important investment, and your garage is the entrance to your home. It's where your kids come in from school. It's where your family and friends gather together. It's much more than just a garage. Now is the perfect time to add beauty and value to your home with an authentic NatureStone garage floor. And every NatureStone floor comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty. For a limited time, get our exclusive gray brown blend stone for as low as $2.99 a square foot plus installation. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's NatureStone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Colucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Colucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Colucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. All right, we've talked plenty about the Browns. We're going to shift gears a little bit and look at the Baltimore Ravens, team that was really good during the regular season, lost their first-round playoff game. Let's welcome back Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com. Ellis, you did an article and said a lot of the things I've been thinking. Ravens were very good, don't get me wrong. But again, now that offense, there's 16, 17 games of tape on it. People are going to figure out exactly what they were doing. And as good as Lamar Jackson was, he deserved the MVP. Let's see if he can do it again. That's kind of where I'm coming from with it.
Yeah, and history's on your side if that's your argument, as I laid out and as you just stated. Let's just start with simple regression, and this is, you don't even have to look at the tape for this one or think you're fielding an insult Lamar Jackson's way. Patrick Mahomes throws 50 touchdowns, wins the MVP, throws 26. Okay, you might say he was hurt. He still played in 14 games. Peyton Manning throws 55 in 2013, that record-setting year, comes back and throws 39. That's still a huge number, but it's not 55. Tom Brady's 50 touchdown year, I believe that was with Randy Moss. Sandwich in between are a 23 and a 24 touchdown season. So NFL history shows, and really, even though I'm not a numbers guy, simple math shows that regression is looming for Lamar Jackson just in general. But if you look closer to the Ravens offense, I want to try and explain why. There's two roadmaps that may have now developed a blueprint into holding the Ravens, and it's both the Browns game in Week 4 and then the Tennessee Titans AFC divisional game. Both those games, you saw underachieving and really a flustered Ravens offense when they weren't leading. And that's because the Ravens were front runners. They had a plus 97 point differential in just the first quarter this year. That's an astronomical difference and shows that they jumped out on teams and took advantage, where now the philosophy, not only containing Lamar Jackson, there's some stuff that Tennessee did there with bracketing the tight end, eliminating throws across the middle. Jackson threw 19 touchdowns to slot receivers. The next closest was 15. Lamar Jackson threw 27 of his 36 touchdowns when leading. That's 75%. So Tennessee showed you eliminate the middle of the field and then get on them early. And how you do that is by being aggressive on offense. And it's cliche, but it is true to beat the Ravens. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. It's not about being a good offense. It's about being an aggressive offense. Get the lead on Baltimore, force them to be something they're not, and they become a bit more predictable. But if you let them run with that momentum, you see how they became the team they were last year. And look, we just talked wins and projected wins from PFF last year. If the graphic, if I'm remembering right, they had them around 10.5 or 11. So even aggression, just it's natural. When you have a team in a season like that, doing it again is 2 times as hard, because when you have an exotic offense, you go from the hunter to the hunted very quickly in this league, and history has shown that.
Well, and the other thing is both playoff games that Lamar Jackson has played in were quite bad. I mean, they were just bad. He was bad in the Titans game, and he was bad against the Chargers the year before that. The other thing is a valid point that you made. He did really well when he was in the lead throwing the football. He really struggles when you have those tight ends double-teamed, bracketed, and you take away the middle of the field. You can see that, and that's going to be the MO. You know, make them beat you on the outside.
Yeah, and I think it's 2 things. I don't think it's just Lamar Jackson not being able to throw the outside. They don't have a lot of outside receiving talent. Hollywood Brown is going to be a name to watch and really just a name to know. He's going to caused a lot of damage and headache for defensive coordinators around this league, specifically in the AFC North for a while here. But other than that, they're built on the slot receiver in Brown, and then they're big tight ends across the middle. And you go back and watch that Tennessee tape, they just were not having it. They would have their middle backer literally playing box in, bracketing across the middle. And really, Lamar Jackson made some incredible throws across the middle, throws where the defensive player's like, how the heck did you squeeze that in there? Or I should have intercepted that one. Like, Lamar was force feeding to the middle of the field. Now, I'm hesitant to think their offense is going to look the exact same. They ran pistol 567 times last year. The next closest team was 62 with the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. That's an anomaly. And to me, I think John Harbaugh and Greg Roman are too smart to just throw you the same offense you saw last year. But then again, this offseason is riddled with mystery. So they just might be forced to show you the same thing, which probably bodes well for the Cleveland Browns in week 1 and Joe Woods, seeing what the Ravens were on tape, seeing the blueprint, and then getting that same offense when the season starts.
And you also hit on something there. One of the reasons that the Ravens were so successful last year is because it's not an offense that you see. It literally is unique. So there isn't any carryover from what you did the week before or what you're going to do the week after. The Ravens are that different, and it's that much harder to simulate that. And you know what? Points to Greg Roman. That's their offensive coordinator. He's a John Carroll guy. He's a local guy. He played football at John Carroll. They came up with a really good offense, but now you've seen it for a year. So let's see what happens now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And whether it was the Miami Dolphin Wildcat offense before it, or even Greg Roman's heavy pistol offense with the San Francisco 49ers, you see teams adapt. We'll never forget when Bill Belichick was stunned by the Wildcat offense, and we'll never forget Colin Kaepernick running all over the Green Bay Packers and everyone thinking, wow, is this the next great quarterback? Then things evolve. Defensive coordinators spend their entire offseason obsessing over containing running quarterbacks like that. And you saw the Packers. They just started hitting Colin Kaepernick. They did not care if he gave it up. They wanted him to hand the football off because we're going to make sure the quarterback run doesn't beat us. And one thing Tennessee also did in that game, and is going to be, I believe, a staple of Joe Woods' offense because he comes from that cover 3 shell, the 49ers, Seattle Seahawk type mentality. Bend but don't break. They're going to let Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense get those yards in between. Look, the Ravens gained 513 yards against the Titans but couldn't score. They couldn't get off the field they couldn't convert and stay on the field on those critical 4th downs. They went 0 for 4 on 4th down, and they were brutal in the red zone. And that's where Joe Woods is going to make his money, hopefully, with this Browns defense. That's going to be his philosophy. And at the end of the day, that's the key to containing a Ravens offense that was so dominant last year. But now the tape's out, and you just got to contain Lamar Jackson by always keeping an athlete on him. Your linebackers have to play in unison, know where he is, take away the middle. But most importantly, your defensive game plan needs to be tied to your offense. Kevin Stefanski will have to go out and be aggressive. Go for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3. You have to stay on those guys because if you give them any sort of life, Browns fans saw it last year. That Ravens offense did not look like itself in, what would that have been, like week 15 or 16 in Cleveland. And then all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson scores twice in 90 seconds. And by the time you're going into halftime, everyone knew the game was over. That's what you can't have happen. Tennessee showed you how to do it in the playoffs, and that's going to be the roadmap from here on out against Baltimore.
Now, the other thing is we're talking about regression. This is still a really good football team that added J.K. Dobbins to it. So regression, yes, but that's still clearly the team to beat in the North. Let's make that clear.
Yeah, and I hope I continue to make that clear. I'm not pounding the drum saying, this Ravens offense is nothing to worry about. They still have the most talented, the most elusive ball carrier in football. I don't care if you're Saquon Barkley. I don't care if you're Zeke Elliott. There is nothing more dangerous and more deadly to a defense than Lamar Jackson carrying the football. And you can do everything right, and then all of a sudden he's going to break off a 55-yard run that completely crushes your soul. He still is an accurate thrower of the football. He's a quarterback first. He's comfortable in drop back. And really this is more of a problem of the Ravens pass blocking than it is a Lamar Jackson issue. That Titans team was able to stunt and twist on the Ravens offensive line. So that's the weak point. If you can get them to pass, it's not necessarily because of Lamar Jackson's inefficiencies. That offensive line is not built to pass protect. But at the end of the day, like you said, they added J.K. Dobbins. The rich got richer, a lot like the Chiefs. This is still going to be an 11-12 win football team, but the recipe is out on how to beat them. And like anything, a lot of times it just comes down to a 4th and 1, 4th and 2 in red zone execution. The Browns need to be flawless there. And if you're going to go for the king, you best not miss, as they say on the wire, right? And that's how teams have to look at approaching the Ravens, because they're still the team to beat. I'm not disputing that one bit.
Ellis Williams, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com. As always, we appreciate the insight and the information. Well, that'll do it for us on this edition of More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Want to remind you, Les Levine will be back in the chair Monday from 6 to 7. We'll be back here next Friday at 6 o'clock as well. Everybody have a great weekend and stay safe. We'll see you next week.